Arganissima, New York. Your exotic skin, hair, and beauty source, and your one-stop shop for all your natural and organic skin and hair care, featuring authentic organic Moroccan oil and prickly pear seed oil and much more. Bringing you only the best, straight from the source and proudly produced in the USA. So what are you waiting for? Shop today. Arganissima, New York. Your beauty is our duty.
Folks, welcome back to the iHealth channel, iHealth Radio, the nutritious channel, and with your host, Hurricane H. And new day, great topic, a topic that I want to discuss definitely, and I have been waiting so desperately for this particular show because I have an expert who can a little bit help us, and guide us in terms of the topic of our children's health and their healthy being physically and in terms of nutrition, in terms of weight loss and all this stuff. So I have with me Sheila Carroll, Dr. Sheila Carroll, a pediatrician. She's also a life and weight coach, and she does a lot of stuff to help our children basically be healthier. And you probably heard me in multiple shows talking about the dilemma of food and fast food and the kids today and their menu that's limited. Well, today we're going to address it further with an expert. So, Doctor, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, listen, I am so excited. This is like a treat for me because not only for me, actually, because one is, as I had mentioned just briefly before we started, I have my own kids and I have my own challenges with them in terms of their eating habits. And maybe I'm partially to blame, and we're going to talk about the parents' responsibility with that. But really, it is a pandemic. I mean, a true pandemic. That is ongoing. It's been going, and it's ongoing. I'm not sure it's going to end. Understanding eating is important, and the world we live in, as we just mentioned briefly, is amazing. And I'm not meaning it in a good way here. It is crazy. It is rough. It is different, and it does almost make all the necessary reasons why our kids are not healthy. And so let's talk first things first. I mean, you are a pediatrician, doctor, and ultimately as pediatricians, you in a regular medicine, you just make sure you check the kids and give them their physicals and stuff. But you went beyond that. You're specialized into this area of expertise of helping them, and also teaching the parents. And so let's start about your background first, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. So my background is I've been a pediatrician for about 23 years now. And more recently I've been board certified in obesity medicine as well, which is the study of the emerging science of weight gain, weight loss, how the body's working, drugs to use to treat that, metabolic surgeries to use to treat that, lifestyle interventions to use to treat that. So I am just passionate about this topic, both from a professional but also a personal bent. I was an overweight child myself. I was overweight from about the time I was 10 years old, off and on, but mostly on, mostly overweight, definitely through all my adolescence into my 20s. And I struggled, and I didn't want to be overweight, but I didn't know what to do. And anything I tried, just not eating enough, just not eating, or eating less, nothing worked, right? So it was a struggle. And I feel like that's why so many people, adults today, are struggling, because we never learned, number one, the science of what is really going on with our bodies in today's modern food environment. I don't think anyone would be struggling with their weight if we were living 500 years ago, right? Because the foods that are available back then, that's what our body was designed to handle very, very well. Our body was not designed to handle these foods that are being produced in labs and in manufactured in companies with all of the added sugars and all of the highly processed foods is what I'm getting at. And that's why our kids are facing such struggle these days. Honestly, even kids who you would look at and be like, oh, they don't have a weight problem, or they, quote, look normal, or they look healthy, the truth is, metabolically speaking, none of us should be eating these foods. No one should be drinking Coca-Cola on a regular basis. No one should be eating these highly processed foods. You might be thin or have a, quote, normal weight, but inside your body, metabolically speaking, your body was not designed to handle that. So I just love this topic because there's so much empowerment and that people can, and freedom that people can get when they really understand what's going on. Because me, when I was a kid, I didn't understand. Like, I would try to eat less, but I really wouldn't lose weight. Well, now I know that's because our human bodies, we're wired to store fat. This is how we've survived for centuries and, or millions of years, really. And so there's hormonal changes and there's physiologic changes that happen when you just cut back your calories. So that old method of eat less, move more, like that's what I used to tell people, and, that's what was told to me. That's what we learned in medical school, but it's not very effective advice for a long-term sustainable way of eating that's going to keep you happy, because we want to be happy too. We want to feel satisfied. We don't want to be miserable. We don't want to be deprived. So we need to eat, but we have to figure out a way how to do that in this world that's going to work well for our bodies.
Doc, that's
that was a lot. Sorry.
No, actually, that's perfect. I mean, in there's so much that we're gonna spend the next almost hour on, and I want to start with what you said about you personally, and that's a very important piece, because you being today who you are, knowing where you were when you were a child, I think it kind of connects a little bit better with the people if you talk to them, because the first question, people say, well, what do you know? I mean, you've never been there, right? So it's important to realize that. But you said something important. You were struggling when you were younger, and it was difficult, and that's a big piece of this. I mean, I know I've tackled the topic of bullying, and with something of weight gain and things like that. Childhood, kids are brutal. They can make fun of people. We've seen that happen. We've seen in movies, but it's really happening in real. It's just a depiction of what's happening in schools. So there's a lot more to that. And again, you were young, you ate what you ate, and that's so maybe we can start with that piece of it. And of course, there's so much we talked about. You mentioned metabolism, fat, storage, the food that we eat, and 500 years versus now. So we're gonna get on through all that, but let's start about that. Like, kids today, or even I guess when you were a kid and when I was a kid, it's different in terms of what we ate versus now. I mean, it's got worse, but yet, I mean, if you lived in the Western world or anywhere in the world, right, pretty much the industries have been already in there, and so maybe fast food's gone faster here in the Western world versus some parts of the rest of the globe, but right now, literally, if you travel, I'll give you a good joke. I mean, when we go over all over the world now, there's probably McDonald's, Burger King, KFC, everything that you have in the States is everywhere else. I don't care where you go. There is going to be one of those branches of these franchises out there. So it is that. And that's just one thing. And then it is important to spend some time about the child, in terms of the food. Now, you were a kid, you were eating. I don't know what you ate, what you didn't, but somehow maybe it was the food, maybe it was the body. And that's the thing. It's a combination.
Yes, exactly. I was just going to say, I'm one of 5 kids, and we grew up here in Maine. I live in Maine. I grew up in Maine. My mom was an amazing cook, and not cooking, what I would say, just cooking normally at the time, but baking lots of cookies and cakes and things like that. That was usual for us. But I like I said, I'm one of five, and one brother and one sister have been thin their whole lives, eating the same food. And not, especially as kids, didn't struggle at all. They could eat whatever they wanted and it didn't matter. And in retrospect, it is hard for me to exactly go back. I think I probably did eat more than them. But the interesting thing, the science behind that is when you start to gain weight, the hormonal fat, the adipose tissue or the fat tissue, it's not just sitting there doing nothing. It's actually sending little hormones, little signals that make you hungrier. So I think I ate more because I was hungrier, because I was carrying more weight. You see, like, the vicious cycle of it all. And so some people, for sure, and this is like the beauty of medicine, or the art of medicine, or the beauty of the human body, is everybody's body is so different. So two people eating the exact same things are going to process that differently and have different hormonal responses, because you're under different stress, or you're in a different growth phase, or there's just, and so much we still don't know. So yes, so different kids have different appetites, their bodies handle foods differently, and some people are just more prone to storing fat more easily than other people.
So, Doctor, thank you. I mean, for that's a perfect example. And you said, I mean, five kids, two are thin, and the other ones are getting different weight at different pace.
Yeah.
And what you just mentioned is definitely something to clarify to people. Is that the fact that you said it well? Is that the more you have these fat cells, the more you're gonna get those simulations, or stimulations rather, to eat more. And ultimately it's never gonna stop, and it just adds up. It's like the body is wanting more and more and more,
Right,
and it's
exactly.
really requesting. You
And it's
have
so
no option.
frustrating. Yeah. And that's why the whole, in the past, people said, well, you just don't have willpower, or you need more self-control, or it's that person's fault that they're overweight because they just keep eating. Well, they're eating because they're hungry. And that's a normal survival mechanism for all of us. So it's so much more complicated than that.
Well, the brain has has a reaction to everything, right? The body is sending signals, the brain is responding, and then everything else is also like, the stomach is kind of like, I'm hungry, gotta eat some food. And so that whole feeling is there. And you're right, this is we are programmed, in a way, to do certain things. I love what you said about 500 years ago, either food that existed didn't exist today, and we were meant to eat that way. And you're right. I mean, even 100 years ago, if you walk in a supermarket, you're not going to find the same food that you have today. As a matter of fact, someone came in, and went in the future. I mean, actually, from the past came in today, they'd be like, "What is going on here? What kind of food
Mm,
is this?" They'd be like,
mm,
"Unbelievable, right?" Because they
mm.
they would never think that those were even potentially available, or can be even manufactured, and the food that we have today is there, coloring this, and it's really amazing that the ingredients that, when we're going to talk about a portion of that right now. But so the I want to just allude to the concept of metabolism, right? You said it. Everybody's different. I mean, there's genetics behind that, and there's hormones, and
Mhm.
and there's the metabolism. Again, you said different growth phases. Uh, Gender can also make a difference. The
Yes,
bonus
for
to the girl.
sure.
The activity level is
Yeah.
another thing. Someone that is super active versus someone's not. And
Mhm.
believe it or not, that's still not a condition. My son is active, but yet he gains weight faster. So
Exactly.
it's not the same for everybody, and that's an important thing. So let's talk about uh, the breakdown, maybe, on how it all functions, in terms of the brain, the body, and the connection, in terms of the urge of eating. And I think you talked about in general, but if there's a
Yeah.
way maybe to break it down.
Yeah, I think one way, well, it's it's a huge topic. But the one way to really think about it is, people tend to overeat, or crave, you know, high calorie, high fat, high added sugar food. And so no one is, having health problems because they're overeating salad or overeating broccoli or overeating apples or overeating fruit, right? No one is having health problems because they're eating whole unprocessed foods. We are having the metabolic health problems that we're having as a society, as a globe, like you mentioned, because of the way the food that is being made is affecting our body. And so there's a couple things that I want to say about that. One is that it's designed to make us want to keep eating it. So we eat something with sugar, or highly processed foods usually have a lot of sugar in them, added sugars, or the sugar additives, or the other things that make our our dopamine receptors in our brain, like our reward centers, light up. Like, oh, when you have sugar, your dopamine centers light up. That is two things for you. That evolutionarily has been a sign to tell your body, oh, you should keep doing that. That's good for you. That feels so good. Keep doing that. It must be safe for you because it feels good. And the other thing is, it sets in motion a pathway of learning to kind of eat those foods because they feel good for you. And so so say you have like a candy bar, a 2023 candy bar, and you eat that, you might get, say, we'll just use random numbers, but like 10 units of dopamine. It's not at all measured like that, but I'm just giving an example. You eat an apple, there is a little bit of natural sugar in there. So you're getting a little bit of fructose, you're getting some good sugar, but nowhere near the concentration. So it might be like 0.5, And today the problem is once your taste buds get used to that 10x of everything, you can't even taste that 0.5. And I think that's part of the problem that a lot of kids are experiencing today. They can't taste the natural sweetness of a strawberry or of an apple, because their taste buds are constantly used to getting all the artificial sugars and all the added sugars, the table sugars and high fructose corn syrup. And so they say, well, it doesn't taste good to me. I don't like it. But what they really mean, two things: it's not registering as pleasurable in their brain because it's a comparison thing. I mean, it's not registering because they're used to getting 10x what they're getting, or 100x what they're currently getting. And the taste is the same way. It doesn't taste good because it doesn't taste as good as the other food.
So I'd like to thank you. I mean, you're like, I'm listening to you and my eyes are getting bigger. My my brain is like, going like 2,000 miles an hour there. It's amazing because the way you're breaking it down, and you said it key, sugar. I mean, I want an example, and I know for a fact this was the case. I don't know if it still is, but Coke, for example, when you drink it, I mean, it has high sodium, high sugar, and it gets you thirstier and thirstier and thirstier, and you just want to drink more. You can drink a whole liter, 2 liters, because you're still thinking that I'm thirsty and I need liquid, but it's really just asking you to do more of that. That's one. So it's almost a trick on the mind, right? But you're right. The mind only knows what you give it. And so, and I think what you mentioned about the level of the sweetness that is being given to you, and you're right. Like, if you get out of it, this happened to me. Like right now, if I taste anything that's sweet, it's horrible. It's amazing. It's like you almost reject that sweetness because I reversed it to a degree. That's for me personally. But for kids, they're conditioned from the minute they're literally born into sweets. I mean, think about it. The minute they start eating food, there's like candy bars, candy this, all our holidays, are
frankly,
sweet.
Formula has.
Oh, yeah. I was going to ask about that.
I mean, so here's the thing. Breast milk, natural breast milk, that has sugar. Our bodies add sugar to that because we want the babies to want to eat it and drink it, because we want them to survive and keep going. So yes, as a species, we are wired to love sweet things. And that was fine 100 years ago, or 200, whatever, however many years ago, when we didn't have the food available to us 24/7, and in the amounts it's available to us, and the variety of things, and the constant. If you're a parent, then you've got, this birthday party, this soccer game where there's treats before and after the game, this kid is inviting you over, oh, and that family is going out. It's just constant. So it used to be like a quote treat, but what used to be treats are now commonplace. And there are every day. They're the water we're swimming in, and
Multiplied.
this is what's making it so rough.
Yeah, well, thanks, Doctor. I know. I want to go back to the formula piece. I mean, were we even supposed to have formula? I mean, the fact is, historically, humans existed with no added food or outside food for the babies, and this was an industry thing that was like, hey, why don't we do this? And I don't know what's the concept behind it. I mean, maybe like for the mothers that may not have, but that's not even natural, because all mothers do have the milk and the ability to do that.
Well, there is something called lactation failure, which means, it's not a great name. It's horribly insulting, blaming the person for who, but 7% of women don't make enough milk to support their baby's life. I happen to be one of those people. For whatever reason, after I had my son, I just never made enough milk for him. So in olden days, or in different cultures, I would give my baby to someone else.
Yes.
Could you please help me? Or the community would help me by breastfeeding my child. Here in America, that is not something we do, right? Yeah. So formula, I think, it's a business thing too. It's somebody's business model. And it's very interesting.
Good idea in a way to help, but the ramifications may have, the intent may have been wrong. I don't know.
Exactly. But what you're actually feeding the babies are not necessarily the healthiest food for them, But there are certain formula companies, I believe now, with no added sugars, and they're working on that kind of thing because people are more aware.
Doctor, just funny question, but I mean, does that mean that we're raising synthetic kids? I mean, because really, when you think about it, right, it's synthetic food. It's not real food, and so it's like that's the building block for our kids to grow. When you think about it this way, it's almost like whoa, is that even something, a concept? But I mean, they're growing to be normal, but maybe, because I'll give you an example. I don't know, maybe just me. I have noticed that a lot of kids have braces, or their teeth are not growing in the normal way. Now, I grew up overseas when I was a kid and never had this problem. I didn't notice that people needed braces. I mean, braces were literally something like, what's wrong with you? Like you failed something? I don't know. It was not, but I see it. I don't know. So I make this joke all the time, it must have been the formula that you guys got into. So that was my thing when I was, like literally having to find a justification why my kids had to go. Both my kids, 3 of them, they all had to go to braces.
Yeah. And I think there's a lower threshold now to offer kids braces than there's probably ever been. My son has braces as well. I never had braces as a child, but my brother did. But I think there is some actual data or the science of what you feed your child, the sucking motion, how that impacts how their facial bones grow. People are saying that a lot of kids these days are using those pouches or squeezy, like pureed baby foods. And so kids at earlier ages aren't using their jaws like they used to have to be able to, and that's potentially impacting people's teeth and jaw and facial structure. So I think all of that stuff, when you mentioned synthetic kids, I hadn't thought about it that way. But what I think about is like, wow, our body is so amazing. It's doing everything it can to try to keep us healthy despite what we're doing to it. It's basically like, oh, you're going to give me all those extra calories, all that sugar that I was never designed to handle. I don't, frankly, even have the enzyme to process fructose. Like, fine, I'll just store it as fat. Fine. It's like our body is so smart and doing all of these things. But what's happening is with when you see it in older people, type 2 diabetes, or pre-diabetes or chronic inflammation, all of these things, even, there's so many cancers associated with obesity and insulin resistance and metabolic disease. Basically what your body is saying at that point is, look, I have done the best that I can to try to handle everything that you've been throwing at me, and I'm at my breaking point at this point, And so our bodies are amazing. Now we just need to understand them and help them be as functional as possible.
First of all, I was it was just a funny thing that I just came up with right now as we're talking about, because I thought about, like, when you think about, like, you mentioned stuff that is manufactured GMO type of thing, right? Food. Well, it's synthetic, right? And so is the milk. So that means really, like, whatever you put in is what you get, right? So you get a synthetic, different people that are maybe like they're almost mutated, folks. It sounds as weird as yeah, it sounds weird, but when you think about it, it's not far-fetched. Concept wise, and you're right. Your body is really fighting all this change, and to your point, it's been designed in one way, and then we've been conditioned in a different way, and we've seen the transition. But you're right, it has an exploration mode in terms of how far. It's like, again, I give the analogy of a vehicle. You buy a nice vehicle, you treat it right, you do the oil change, you give it the right ingredients, it's gonna last for a good term that it's designed for. But if you put the wrong stuff in it, you take it off the road, you just bang it all over the place, it's not gonna last long. Same thing here. The body is designed to live whatever your time span is, and your pancreas, your liver, everything is gonna function correctly if you give it exactly what it's intended to be. But then we throw in all this stuff at it, and it just says, okay, towel off. Drop the towel. I can't do this anymore. Now you're on your own. Now you have to get injections and all these things, and it's really crazy. And by the way, you mentioned diabetes as we get older, but today, even kids, there's a lot more children, like juvenile diabetes or children's diabetes. There's a lot of that stuff. It is amazing to even understand that. But the food, to your point, from the beginning of time, was natural. I love what you said. It was not enough food. It was food. You had to harvest it, and cook it, and you had meals. They have times for meals. You didn't have an ice box in somewhere in the house where plenty of food is stored. You didn't have fridges, as we call them today, or freezers and all these things, and storage of food. It was different. We're consuming. We have become a consuming society, or consumer
evolutionarily
society.
Those are extremely new inventions, and our bodies, they've made our life easier for sure. But at the same respect, now we're seeing, like, oh, we are experiencing these problems because now we're seeing what's really happening. It's a double-edged sword, I guess. Well, or whatever that expression is. It was great. It's made life easier, but at the same time, now we're suffering from that same thing.
There's always a price to it, right? But
yes,
it's I would think that I don't think all the stuff happened maliciously. I think it happened just by default of industry. Like, well, we want to find a solution to have extra food, to give the food, to keep the food, safer or longer shelf lives and things like that. We want to make it more attractive. Maybe that's how it all designed, and then of course it became a profitable, place. And when we're talking money, people become secondary in terms of the option between money and people's, the money and people's health. I'm only worried about me as the business owner and the business manufacturer, and then I don't care. Plus, it took years before these things happen, and now industries have been so established that there's no coming back. You put regulations in place, but regulation is also, limited to what it can or can't do, and sometimes it's even bought. I'm sorry to say it, but it's elected officials, and there's
very political, and
it's all political.
It's so much money involved, and I think, the marketing that goes on to
Oh
kids
yeah.
is just so terrible and unethical, and the kids don't know. The kids don't know. We can't expect them to know, and of course they want what's being marketed directly to them. This is the thing. So this is where parents need to come in and like take over control of that ship, that we're sailing in, and help your child understand what's really going on here.
So, doctor, so that's a perfect segue to because you're right. Kids are kids. They are not really. I mean, we call them minors to a degree for a whole time until they become adults, where they can make their own decision. For the most part, it's the parents,
Yeah.
that is behind, all their early days, right? And from the birth to like their childhood until they become adults, right? And well, so I can speak freely about myself, without offending anybody else. You know, as much as you want to be as tough as you can be and as traditional as you can be, to your point, you are facing so many currents. One
Mm-hmm.
being TV. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you said it's being marketed, at the kids from an early age. I mean, you're watching, cartoons, and there's an influx of stuff that's in the cartoons, and then yeah, it's suggestive, it's fun, but it's already being exposed. The kids are exposed to it, and they're like, it's okay. The traditions also that or the cultural traditions have also included some of the stuff, by, I mean, think about, I'll give you an example, Halloween, right? It's it's a horror holiday, and some people even say it's beginner's day, whatever, but yet it is a kid's day. Let's throw some costume and we got to go get some candy, right? And it's buckets of candy, and before the day is over, that candy is gone. And so that's just an example. Easter candy, Christmas candy. I mean, I'm taking to all. I don't care what holiday, what you celebrate, what religion. If you're the West world
Tuesday
person,
candy.
any day candy, right? You go to the movies, right?
Yeah.
Movies like tradition.
This is what I mean. It's not a treat anymore. It is.
It's the city.
We still use the word "let's have a treat," but it's like, well, didn't we just have a treat 2 hours ago?
It's becoming a natural tradition. Like you can't go physically, for example, to the movies. Like I've been taking my kids to the movies, and we sit. Before you go is the soda, and soda is really not soda. I mean the drink. It's really the fruit punch or whatever, which is all bad. As much as you don't want to do it, like take Powerade, but even Powerade is just a different label.
Yeah, that's not good either. Yeah.
I know. So you think it's not carbonated, maybe but it's all sugar, artificial colors, and all the stuff. Then you got the popcorn, and I'm not talking about the little thing. You get a bucket and with the refill, so you can go deep, right? And the butters and stuff. Then you have like it goes in with some sort of a what are those, the raisin thingies, or
Raisinets.
Yeah, Raisinets. It goes with the Twizzlers. It goes with, like, there's a whole set. I mean, the Sour Patch. Forget about it. Sugar galore. I mean, it's like
those. Yeah.
But again, I mean, fruit rolls, whatever, Fruit Loop. I mean, I forgot the name of them. Those roll ups, whatever. It's all sweet stuff. And as much as I don't want to buy it for them, you're taking them to the movies, and it's like a demand. It's like an expectation, and you try to be healthy. It doesn't work. That's one.
Well, here's the thing, though. But why are you buying it for them?
Well, I'm with you. I told you earlier. How about me?
No, I'm just saying. But this is the part of the problem that we parents face. We have this cultural belief, or it's not even cultural, but somehow we have this thought: it will be more fun for them if they eat this, if they get to eat this sugar.
For me, it was different. It was more
what was your thought?
I was like, they're gonna be upset. I'm supposed to take.
Well, okay, so that's the other side. That's the other side. They're gonna be upset, and then I don't want to deal with that.
I don't want to ruin the day for them.
I don't want to. So it's all. But yes, these are all the thoughts that parents are having every single time. Even in the grocery store, I walk by the Doritos aisle, and I know my son loves Cool Ranch Doritos, and in my mind, I'm like, oh my gosh, he would be so happy if I bought those for him. But then I'm like, no, I don't. I sometimes say to myself, like, well, if he might be really happy if I gave him a margarita, but I'm not going to give him a margarita because I know that's not good for him. So myself, I have just gotten so strong in my own belief of of what I feel comfortable buying him. Or, you know, he went to the movies the other day and he had a Sour Patch Kids package in it. He went with friends. He came back. He had Sour Patch Kids. But, you know, fine. I don't want to micromanage him to that degree. But I do really, truly believe it's harmful to him when he eats that. Right now, his body's accepting it and tolerating it and doing what it can. I still think it's a little bit damaging to him. And I hate that. I don't like that at all. But at the same time, I'm trying to provide education to him. Like, okay, well, you have you had the choice, or you can make this choice even before you go to the movies. Let's eat something now, have some good protein, you know, complex carbohydrates, get you know, get so you're not hungry, you know, quote hungry. And then you can have something, you know, then you can think, do I really want to have this? Knowing, you know, but here's the problem. You and I as adults, we can do that. I can go to the movies no problem and not buy anything and sit there and enjoy the movie and have a great time. And I don't need any of that stuff because I worked on that. That was part of my own work. But I have the brain, I have the mature prefrontal cortex, like the very front part of our brain, the most advanced kind of thinking. It's like the CEO of your life. Like my son, he's only 11. His prefrontal cortex, just like everybody's, won't be developed until he's 25, 26 years old. So when I'm telling him or asking him to think, well, when you're at that counter at the movies, think about future Theo. You know, think about, you know, his body, how he's going to feel, his mood, his ability, you know, and he's just literally incapable of doing that. Not because he doesn't want to, and not because, you know, not because there's something wrong with him, but his brain is just not wired for that yet. And no one is, you know, and that's exactly why parents need to step in and be the prefrontal cortex.
So thank you. By the way, just to clarify, I am a health freak, and so is my wife. And so, but you know, that was our struggle, right? And you know what we did, we kind of, to your point, we've allowed it, you know, a certain times.
And me too. And I did not at all mean to judge, you know, say.
No. I volunteered.
It's so interesting, all the thoughts that we parents have that are contributed, you know, that are ongoing, that if we don't become aware of that, then we don't even have the opportunity to say like, oh, do I want to keep that thought, or do I really want to look at that and see if that's a thought that's serving me and serving my family or not.
I get it. And so to be honest with you, I mean, yes, you feel bad, and I did succumb to it every now and then, but really what we established was a rule. For example, if my house, there's none of that stuff in the house. We don't buy those things. You know, like, you know, we have a joke in the house, like, you know, buy food that we'd like to eat. You know, no, we're not buying the food that you like to eat. We buy the food that we should be eating. And that's our challenge, right? So, and as they grow, the kids, you know, start growing up and they have a mind of their own, it becomes more of a struggle. Now they're, you know, I don't eat your food. Like when they were kids, I mean, tiny kids, you know, like, you know, in the elementary school, whatever, up to mid school, I think they were still eating our foods, you know, like the salads and everything, and the meats and whatever stews, whatever you make. And, you know, but now, you know, and this is going to be a piece of the discussion today, is that limited menu that I think all our kids have worldwide. And that consists of like 8 elements of, you know, burgers, pizza, pasta, mac and cheese, nuggets, and I don't forget the other 2. But that's kind of like what everybody's doing. Hot dogs, you know, those are things. But, you know, you mentioned something funny about in the movies you and I can control. But let's talk about that for a minute, because listen, my first job was in Disney, and I love the place, right? It's magical, but one thing about the magic is not really magic. There's science behind it, right? At least the appearance of it is magical. But I'll give you an example. If you've probably been to Magic Kingdom or, you know, or Disneyland.
Yes, I've been once.
Many times, yeah. Oh, that's okay. So I've been there 1,000 times. And when you walk in, there is a store. I'm just going to give you an example. It's a you know, a chocolate and candy store right on the front.
Main Street.
Actually, there is a scent that is actually being, you know, promoted in the air.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
so you basically just like a robot, you know, you just follow where the scent is, and the first thing you do, you walk into that store. And same thing in the movies. You walk in, the popcorn is attracting you right to the concession, you know, place, and let's get, you know, funny with that. And you got all these things, and your eyes are like rolling now with all the digital stuff. It's like you want it all, and you like come in with buckets, and you got, you know, trays of food. Now we have even food in the movie theater, right? So it is, there is the science and the industry designs now, and the marketing has been also almost fooling our brains in a way, because it's, your senses are being tested right now. And yeah, you, I don't care, especially if I mean, we know one thing: if you're hungry, your senses are highlighted. I mean, they're heightened, right? And so you can smell something from like a mile away.
Yeah.
Smells good, and then you just like, you know, it's like almost like you become zombie. You just kind of like, you know, follow, and you go, you know, that's what's happening to our kids and to ourselves. But you're right. As an adult, you control. As a kid, you can, and then you get dragged like that. Come on, let's go. I need some more. And most of the kids, you know, they throw a fit, and the parents like, okay, whatever, take it. I just don't want to hear, you know, any more noise.
Yeah. Yeah. So yes, we don't do that with other things though for our kids. We you know, for example, like if your kids get in the car and they refuse to put on their seatbelts and throwing a major fit, you're probably not going to drive very far, at least with your, you know, your child unbelted or unrestrained. It's dangerous for them. And, you know, a lot of my friends are like, geez, Sheila, you know, it's just sugar. It's just kids. Kids, they need sugar. Like, well, no,
Poison.
I'm not saying they don't need any sugar, and they don't. I'm not saying everyone needs to go cold turkey on this right away, you know, or ever cold turkey permanent ever at any time. You can always have some things a little bit. But what I think people don't understand, and I think people just don't understand the harm that's being done. Even if you can't see it, even if you're not seeing it as extra weight on your child, or you're not seeing it as type 2 diabetes, or you're not seeing it in some outward way just yet, we know that we know that our bodies can't handle these foods metabolically very well. I forget what the data is in adults, but it's something like 90% of adults are not metabolically healthy. If you checked their blood work, if you know, their triglyceride levels, their LDL level, their blood pressure, their waist circumference measurement, you know, if you tracked and you measured, I think what the latest thing is, I'd have to go back and look, but it's a very high percentage of adults are not considered to be metabolically healthy. Now, that didn't start that day they got tested. It's probably been building up for years, honestly. And so what I'm seeing, and I think what we're all seeing, is the pre-pandemic data of kids with overweight or obesity was north of 20%. And so that was even before the pandemic, when we know that rates of weight gain went up during that time period. So that means 1 in 5 kids is already suffering some metabolic issues with weight. And so what's starting now in childhood is only going to progress, you know. And so, yes, kids have their own agency. We love that we want them. We want kids to make their own decisions. And that's what we're doing as parents. We are shepherding them into, you know, their life, where it's like a very long 18-year runway, or however many years your child will be at home with you. And you're teaching them, and you're leading them by example, and you're trying to give them everything that they need, so that then when they are making their own decisions more and more and more, 14, 15, 16, and they're riding their bike around town or going out with buddies or whatever, you want them to have some understanding of what the choices they're making and how that's contributing to the experience of their life. And we as parents can really help them understand that. We can help them, for example, if, we can help them understand the science, number one. We can help them understand the political nature and the marketing. Kids are very savvy to that kind of thing, and they don't like being kind of fooled or, taken advantage of. So in my experience, kids have loved learning about how they're being targeted to buy this thing. And in a way, it makes them not want to buy things sometimes, but there's a lot of work to be done at home too. Like when you eat something, how do you actually feel in your body? And that's a super powerful skill to teach your kids. And it's not something that we adults really talk about very much either. So if adults, the parents, start paying attention, oh, when I eat these Doritos or this French fries or this, then I notice, I don't feel that great. Once you start paying attention, then you can teach your kids that same skill. And then over time, they might be like, well, I'm going to make a different choice because I don't want to feel that way. See what I'm saying?
I'm with you, Doctor. I'm listening, and it's amazing because there's few elements there, right? One is you talked about, the example of the seatbelt, right? But really, to your point, I mean, listen, sugar, we know it as sugar. I mean, if we called it poison, people will not take it, right? I mean, it's just a name, right?
Some people call it poison.
I know. Well, I'm saying, but if we those that call it poison, they don't do sugar. They're already anti-sugar. But the idea is it really helping you? You're right. It's not.
You don't need it. We technically do not need sugar. None of us do. We need carbohydrates, but that's different than sugar.
Agreed, but also if you eat natural, you're gonna get your sugars regardless, right? So,
exactly.
The problem, we don't need the added sugar or the extra sugar that's refined, which is common in every single thing you have today. I mean, even your breads and everything you buy has some level of. You look at the ingredients: sugar, 20, 15, 40, 50, 60. I mean, spoons.
And that's a super important skill to teach your kids too, to read labels. And to look at the ingredient list, number one, look at now everything has to have added sugars, the grams of added sugars. So what the American Heart Association, the CDC, and the WHO say, if you are under 2 years old, so from 0 to 2 years of age, you should have no added sugars every day. Like the goal is to keep those kids not exposed to sugar. Then from 2 to 19 years old, 25, a maximum number of 25 grams of sugar per day. Those are the recommendations for kids. And I think adults are supposed to have, and so what that works out to is 6 teaspoons of sugar, about 6 teaspoons. So if you were to go to your kitchen, get out a teaspoon and go to the pantry and ladle out 6 teaspoons, you would see a tiny amount of sugar. That's the maximum amount. My son was at a little league game the other day, and one of his friends had a Gatorade, and I just looked at I said, oh, hey, can I look at that for 1 second? I looked at the label, 39 grams of sugar in that one bottle. So he's only supposed to have 24 grams a day, or 25 grams a day total, 39 grams in that one bottle, plus whatever else he's eaten. The other thing I want to make sure you know is that most people kind of feel like high fructose corn syrup, we know like that's not healthy for us, right? I think most people really do you think most people would recognize that as something, we shouldn't be eating a lot of that? And they even packages like label that now, no high fructose corn syrup, And so high fructose corn syrup is there's 2 versions of it. One has 42% fructose and one has 55% fructose. And it's really the fructose that now more and more scientists are saying that's the molecule that our human bodies are struggling with in this modern environment. So high fructose corn syrup has 55% fructose in it. Table sugar, which is what is in your kitchen and what is in a lot of these added foods, that's 50% fructose. So table sugar is essentially the same thing as high fructose corn syrup. Because I hear so many people say things like, well, I'm buying this because it doesn't have high fructose corn syrup in it, but it has, 39 grams of regular sugar in it. And so it's essentially the same thing. And until you get deep into the literature of that kind of thing, we wouldn't know that, because certainly the manufacturing people are not going to be telling us that.
I mean, think about it this way: if they did, we wouldn't be buying the product, right? I mean, it's
Right.
it scales of the economy here.
Yeah.
But doctor, thank you for that explanation. But so here's the thing, right? Mentioned fructose. I said pancakes because that's like the tradition. Eh? Everybody has some weekend pancakes, and you gotta get all like my son. I mean, he puts the syrup on eggs and everything. I mean, yeah, it's amazing. I'm like, I can't get it. And by the way, the education is there. They know what the ramification of this and
Yeah.
where it's gonna take you if you continue. As a matter of fact, a few years back, we had a scare because I think it was like 14, whatever, and the doctor says he's pre-diabetic, and I was like, whoa, and so we had to kind of like really get into a deep dive. No, and we got a lot more of exercise in there, and so and he got away from there. But the idea is you have to observe, and you have to watch and keep up. But that leads me to the problem, which is our society. So let me be clear about that. You're the parents. You can be the best parents you can be in terms of the food part, what you buy, the conditioning, the training, and the table that you have at home. But then now the kids go to school. They're not getting the healthy stuff in school. I'm sorry, but that's reality. I mean, the menus, at least in the States, and by the way, there's a lot of videos out there that can compare some schools from worldwide, schools. We're probably one of the worst in terms of what our kids eat. And when you look at that stuff, it's really not healthy at all. Every single thing that is wrong is in there, at least from a nutrient perspective. That's one. Two, peer pressure. You're with your friends. To your point, the party is stuff. Like boo if you don't eat this. What's wrong with you? Well, you're a kid. Enjoy your life, and you get all this stuff happening, and it's building, and now you get to a point when the kids are teenagers. That's like the rebellious, years, and like, mom, dad, I know what I'm doing. You can tell me this, and now you have to struggle. It's like a clash, right? So you're almost, you're forming them home.
Yeah.
They're disforming them somewhere else. It's like there's a formation here, and there's a whole destruction on the other side. So no matter what you do, between the marketing, between the culture, between the system and the environment, it's like you're struggling. It's like you're swimming up current, and it's tough.
You're swimming up current, and you are considered, what's the right word? Out, or my son is like, don't be weird, mom. Don't bring anything weird. Don't. You're considered abnormal, or I can't think of the right word, but you're not going with the flow. If you are like, okay, here's your you what?
You're extreme.
Extreme. Those words are used too, for sure, And so that there is no doubt this is why our kids are struggling so hard, because it's not easy for the parent. It's not easy for us parents right now, and it's a lot of work. And the only thing I guess I would say is we can't give up. I think we might lose the battle, lose 100 battles, but we just have to stay with the big picture and stay with the mission of, this is ultimately what is going to keep you happy and healthy. And yes, you do get to make these choices for yourself. And if you're choosing that right now, there's nothing I can do about it. Okay. You're controlling what you eat at home. Like you said, you control what you bring in at home. And I do the same thing. And that's one big message. So for us parents, we can control what we can control. And we can't control our kids, especially when they're not right in front of us. So we just have to keep going and doing the best we can, setting a good example for them. Living that lifestyle ourselves is really the best way. They see us, your kids see you feeling good, being fit, being happy, thinking well, having a lot of energy, and they're probably like, man, I want that too. And our kids, every kid is really looking to their parent as to how they think they should act.
So, like you said something about lead by example, and but that's another element that we need to just highlight briefly here, because you're right. If my lifestyle is kind of fit and more like specific, where we counting the calories when we go, we do treats every now and then, but we know, like, if I do a treat, that means we got to work up extra, whatever, we got make it up and do all the stuff, and that'll take us to the discussion about calories versus sugar. But the concept, I've seen this, you've probably seen this. You go out and you can see sometimes families, they kind of like are open about eating, and you see the parents are not as healthy, and therefore the kids are just basically doing the same. And they listen, I cruise a lot, right? And I can tell you, on cruise ships, people go crazy on the buffet line. I mean, trays and trays and trays. You do not need all that, but I know they can't control it, because, to your point, all that chemical stuff is going on. But that's when you have a younger person that is in that environment. Well, that's all they're going to know again. So this is a part of, and by the way, I'm not judging people, folks, just to be clear.
Exactly. Yeah.
We're just sharing like observation here. But I know even those same folks, they know that they have an issue. They just can't do anything about it. And most of the people, when you get to a certain point, it becomes very difficult to go back. I mean, it's not impossible, but it's difficult. And the more you get to a point of like I give up, I'm just going to let my body go. That's when it gets worse and worse. And then now you get complications, and the diabetes kicks in. And it doesn't get any better from that point. Once you get to a certain level, it's over. And it's best to pin it really when you are at that younger age. And sometimes even me as a parent, let's say if I notice that I'm not healthy or whatever, maybe I should prevent, and shelter my kids not to have the same problems I have. So again, it's just a quick message for people, if you're watching, and it's your health at the end of the day. And there is more to this, because we complain about the healthcare system, right? Well, it does take a toll on the healthcare system. Now, it may benefit some, it may not benefit some others. There's the debate about, is this benefiting doctors, the hospital system, the healthcare system, the economy of healthcare, whatever. Or it is really taking a toll on them, and that's where the cost is high, and that's why we can't afford the medicine and stuff like that. So there's that whole discussion. That's a whole topic, on its own. But all this stuff is happening in real time, and it starts at an early age, and it starts from the parents, and the behavior that we actually are, portraying is what's being accepted by those children, absorbed by the children. To your point, the kids are gonna like absorb everything. They mimic parents, father, mother. Like, for example, in my household, we work out. My wife does teach, fitness stuff, and I'm got a health channel. Healthcare. But yet, I know all these things, and the reason we do these talks is to help people at least get them closer to the reality, and maybe resources and solutions. Mm-hmm. So, doctor, you mentioned something: sugar, carbohydrates. Mm-hmm. And so let's talk about that. What does that mean, and the difference? And then let's talk about the importance of exercise for kids and movement.
Oh yeah, so important. Exercise and movement. So not all carbohydrates are sugar. Carbohydrates are they're called a macronutrient of our body. We need protein, we need fat, and we need carbohydrates. And the beauty of having real, whole, unprocessed foods, fruits and vegetables is what I'm talking about, nuts, seeds, or I guess nuts, are more in the fat category, but the sugar, which is just a molecule that comes, but it's coming in fruit and vegetables. It's coming packaged in all the other things that our body needs: the fiber, the micronutrients, the vitamins, the minerals. So those are there's a difference between like healthy, quote, healthy carbohydrates and just carbohydrates. Or just sugar. I guess I'm not sure if I'm answering your question or not.
No, that's perfect. And so now let's talk about that. Essentially, fruits, vegetables, proteins is really what should be, and whole grain foods or whole food, right?
Mhm.
Is what we should have in our pretty much, table,
Exactly. Yeah.
and water, nothing in
Yeah.
it.
Honestly, that's all we need. Yeah.
So,
And that
so
would keep us super healthy.
right, but here's the challenge now. Our tables may not be made of that. I mean, let's look out in the U.S., right? Burgers, fries, hot dogs. I mean, you can't go to a game without a hot dog and some fries and ketchup. I mean, talking about ketchup and all these extra stuff. I'm talking about sodium and sweeteners and sugars. I mean, you can clean silver with ketchup. I mean,
Yeah, and the condiments and there's so many sources of hidden added sugars. Um, yeah,
it all
barbecues.
tastes good. That's the problem, and
Yeah.
you just can't stop.
Well, the thing, I guess where I've gotten to is the place where I do go to baseball games without having a hot dog, and I enjoy baseball. I do go to parties where I don't eat things I don't want to. And I've and this is the power of coaching. This is where I didn't learn this skill. It wasn't just magically came to me. Someone taught me this skill. And this is what I learned through life coaching, which was so different than my medical training. In medicine, we just tell people, okay, do this. Oh, here's your problem. Okay, I know what to do. Do this, do this, do this. And then the person leaves and they're like, yeah, but how am I going to do that? How am I going to get myself to do that? Even if you really want to do something, until you understand, so there's this thing, there's a theory, or it's not a theory, but it's a framework of it's cognitive behavioral therapy is one way of looking at it, but it's that your thoughts create your feelings and your feelings drive your actions. So if you say you want to be going to the gym, if the action you want to be taking is go to the gym or go for a walk or fill in any action, eat a salad or don't eat, the hot dog, you need to go upstream of that action and look at how you're going to be feeling. How do you need to feel so that you get yourself to the gym? Okay, I want to feel, motivated, or I want to feel committed is a really good one, because lots motivation waxes and wanes. But okay, so if I want to feel committed, what's the thought I need to be thinking that's going to give me that feeling of committed? My health is important to me, or my family is important to me, or this would be good for me, or I know this is going to help me. See what I'm saying? So that whole thought, feeling, action, and we know that what we do and what we don't do, that creates our experience in life. And so this is the key to really understanding what's going on. If you don't like your current situation, if you don't like the current results in your life, you can kind of trace them back to a variety of thoughts that you're having. And then that's so empowering and so freeing, because that's where you can step into, okay, well, my thoughts are optional and I don't have to keep thinking that. And I'm going to choose a new thought that serves me better and gets me the result I want.
Powerful, doctor.
When I learned that, I felt free, really.
It is powerful, and again, the mind is powerful as it is, and it controls everything. Whatever we're talking about chemicals and brain, and hormones and all this stuff, and it's all happening. I mean, really, it's all.
I know it's all interconnected.
Exactly.
So for adults to lose weight, they need to, understand why they're making the food choices that they're making. Number one, stop choosing foods that are driving your hunger. And also then the whole emotional eating piece. Why am I eating? If I'm not physically hungry, why am I eating? And we eat for so many different reasons than just physical hunger. And so if you can get control of both of those things, then you'll have a good chance of sustainably losing weight and keeping it off, because you've really understood what is going on and what the problem is.
If you do as a parent, you'll be able to teach your kids that, and then
Exactly. Exactly. That's my whole thing. Your kid might keep choosing the Gatorade. They might keep choosing the ice cream, but by the time their prefrontal cortex is developed when they're 25, they've already seen you and they've been listening to you for the past 15 years or however long you've been, and then it's going to be like, oh, bam, I know what to do. Yep. I know what to do for myself. And you are going to save your child decades of struggle.
Doctor, it's important because kids, they think they have a limited time frame to live. And by the way, when I say kids, I had the same feeling when I was a young kid. You don't think about age. You don't think about elderly, stages. You don't think about bodies. Metabolism going to shift every 10 years and gets crazier, and unless they're, in your side, right?
You're clueless.
Exactly. We have no idea. So when I talk to my kids, it's like, that's gibberish. That's like alien language. Don't tell me that stuff. I'm not there yet. Exactly. That's a blah blah. So but unfortunately, what you're doing right now, you're instilling these ideologies and ideas into their subconscious. So eventually it will click. To your point, it will click. But that's the challenge, because the same way that the market and all the stuff is actually doing all that stuff, subconsciously, slowly but surely, they will be able to move it. Not hopefully everybody does. So, doctor, quickly, one thing that we have in our culture today here in the West, and more than the East, I would say, is the quantity of food. We are abnormally, quantitative when it comes to rations and food. I mean, you go to any restaurant, you get these plates that are like literally family style, food for one person. You always take over food. I mean, I don't think we finish our foods. Usually we take a box home. That's because the portions are bigger. You go in Europe, I mean, they give you stuff. You're like, you're done. You're like, what the hell? I'm still hungry. It's different. Why is that? I mean, I know it's a cultural thing. I know it's industry. It's like you get for what you pay for. But it is almost another problem that is creating the need for more. I mean, it's amazing.
It's a huge part of the problem, portion control, and our kids are eating way more than they need to be. That's another problem. But just like we mentioned, like smell hunger. You walk into the movie theater and you smell the popcorn, and you're like, oh, turns out I am hungry. You hadn't been hungry out in the parking lot, and then you smell it and you're hungry. And it's the same thing with your eyes. You see it and you're like, oh, I'm really hungry, and so, yeah, I think that is another big problem that we're facing, this supersized everything. And the strategy for that is figuring out your true hunger, what hunger really feels like in your body, and what fullness really feels like. People I teach my clients a hunger scale, where like -10 is like the hungriest you've ever been. You haven't eaten in so long you would, you're gonna die if you don't eat. And +10 is, you're so full you can't possibly eat one more Thin Mint. And then in the middle is, 0, where you're at neutral. And so you can learn by spending time slowing down, getting used to your body. You can, we recommend eating in between like -4, start to eat something, notice, oh, I'm getting a little bit hungry, or, oh, okay, it keeps coming to my mind. Food keeps coming to my mind. Okay, I think I'm getting hungry. But you can, start eating only when you're hungry, and then stop when you're, somewhere +2, +3, +4, and don't keep going just to finish what's on your plate. And that is a skill. But here's the thing: we need to understand that the processed foods that a lot of people are choosing to eat, are messing up your body's hormonal signals, that the hormones that tell you you're full and hungry. So leptin and ghrelin, those are important hormones for weight maintenance. And when you're eating whole, real, unprocessed foods, so easy to tell when you're hungry and easy to tell when you're not full. I mean, when you're full. So the other thing I'll just throw out there, for your audience, because I think people think like, oh, well, I don't want to be deprived. I don't want to not eat something. The truth is, when I gave up eating sugar and a lot of processed foods, I was shocked at how not hungry I was. I had always been hungry. That's why I struggled with my weight all the time, because I felt hungry a lot. And when I felt hungry, I ate. But when I gave up eating sugar, and to me, like, flour is, right below your neck, flour is pretty much turned right into sugar. So flour and sugar are essentially the same thing. So when I gave up eating flour and sugar and I got in touch with my real hunger, it's shocking how not hungry we are when we're eating protein and healthy fats. Now, I'm not saying that you need to make your kids not eat any flour or not eat any sugar, but I'm just sometimes I advise my clients to do this as an experiment on yourself. Your kid doesn't even need to be involved. Leave them out of this. But you take a week or 2 weeks, or frankly, even a month would be better, and go no flour, no sugar, and see how good you are going to feel. Then you're going to be like a convert and feel so committed and be like me, crazy lady, talking about it all the time. But you just feel so good. It's freeing, really. And we don't realize how bad we feel until we give it up.
It's amazing. Listen, there was a point in my life where I let it go, and I was doing all of that crazy eating, and no limits, and all the snacks and everything. In 1 year, I gained about 50 pounds. And when I dropped all that, it was me being conscious and taking all that stuff out, and the feeling that your body is in, and how you feel like you're really excited, you have the energy and all the stuff. That's the other thing, energy. I mean, when you're like too overwhelmed, your body is kind of like depressed in a way that it's not really active. You think it's the opposite, but your hormones are just trying to tackle the food and just keeping you awake. And then you're not doing much, right? You're like you're blah, you just
you don't feel good. Plus your sugar level is going up and down, and you are on this roller coaster ride of glucose. And it physically, we don't feel good when we eat like that.
Doctor, quickly, so I love what you said. I mean, by the way, thank you for the picture about the food on the table. The more you have on the table, the more you're going to eat. The least you have on the table, you're probably going to be able to, like, oh, I'm done, it's over, and you walk away. And then it's psychologically speaking, the more you see on the plate, the more you want to finish it. So that's
why they also recommend, like, using smaller plates. Even if we tend to buy really big plates. But years ago, people used to eat off much smaller plates, and they even had kid-sized plates. Now, kids off adult-sized plates.
It's a joke. When I go to movies, I do actually ask for the kids menu. And they look at me funny, like,
right?
Yeah, and my kids are not even with me. Like, kids menu.
Yeah.
They look at me like, okay, I mean, but that's like, when I go and I want to treat myself, but because you have to. You can't starve yourself for everything. I mean, sometimes you have to cheat, and I do that. But I know that I have to do some extra work that day, whatever, workout, right? Now, the importance of balancing with water. I mean, water is essential to our life, and I think, but also, if you drink enough water, like let's say you drink and eat at the same time, I mean, you're gonna fill your stomach to a degree that you're not gonna be needing more. You're gonna feel full. Give you that feeling of full. Is that even a thing?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And lots of times when people feel hungry, what they're truly just thirsty, because we're chronically, underhydrated here in America. We don't drink as much water as we should. Plus we tend to drink things that are dehydrating, with things with caffeine in them. And so, yes, drinking more water will definitely help with hunger for sure. And it helps with feeling full when you're eating. For sure. Yeah.
That's because that's important. By the way, the fact of dehydration versus having enough water, that's a big deal, because to your point, we don't tend to drink a lot. When you're young, you're not going to feel it, but as you get older, your kidneys are going to have a fit with
Right,
you. So
right, right.
it's just, and your skin, your body, it's all going to be, calling for
Drained.
help.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the thing. I think the biggest message, and coming to the end of the show, is that you're a kid, you're a child. Your parents are kind of in control in a way, but eventually you're going to be your own, control, captain, and you want to live healthier, happier, longer, as opposed to like live happy for a few years and then struggle, in a
Exactly.
longer time. And
Exactly.
that's the biggest message. And I think as parents, we want our kids to live as long as they can, and even, you know uh, be alive and happy and healthy, and you want to see them thrive, just like you want to see yourself. But we love our kids probably more than we love our own selves. I mean, that's just parents,
Yeah.
101, most of us. I hope that's the case. But the idea is that you want them to do more and better. And again, this is important, just to educate, that we have the ability to help. To your point, as much as we can. We might not be able to tackle every single, wind coming into us that is with an influence, but at the same time, we can do our part in, and whether listening to a show, talking to a specialist such as yourself. And I love what your mix between the medicine piece and the actual life coaching piece, because, or
Yeah.
the lifestyle, dynamics. I think those two
Well,
combine.
if you can't implement the strategies,
Mm.
then their strategies are no good. So everybody needs like the whole mindset piece. How do I get myself to do what I really want to do? You know, and there are things to learn that you can figure it out, and you can do this by yourself over time. It helps to have a coach at first, for sure, teach you these things, but then you can it's so it's so powerful and so empowering. You will create the life that you want.
That's powerful. So quickly, doctor, the
We didn't even
exercise.
talk about movement or
Yeah,
sleep
that's it. Yeah. So
or emotional regulations.
so listen, you have time, I have time. So the exercise piece, right?
Yeah,
It's for kids. How I know,
so
we kind of.
powerful, so
So
powerful.
what would you recommend to our children today? Like,
So
what do they
my
do?
recommendation is, number one, you are not. We don't want to be sending our kids the message, you are exercising to lose weight. That is not the message we want to be sending them. It's way more powerful to be talking about. Well, first of all, how I advise all my clients and I advise all my patients, we don't even need to really be using the word weight with kids. What we really want to be doing is talking about health, and how are we going to keep you healthy? How are we going to keep me, mom, healthy? And so, but I see a lot of kids who are saying, well, I'm going to lose weight by going to the gym. My mom's going to sign me up and I'm going to go to the gym. And I think that that's just, old fashioned conditioning. I don't know where they're getting that, but I can't tell you the number of kids who think the secret to better health is going to a gym. So so I try to, gently steer them, like, wonderful. Exercise is amazing for you for so many reasons, not the least of which is, exactly what we were just talking about. What we are going for is health, and we are going for longevity and lifespan and health span. So we want people to be as healthy as possible for as long as possible. And exercise is a huge part of that. And so for kids, it's fun. They feel better. They sleep better. There's so much data that shows, like, kids that get outside have lower stress levels. They have better eyesight. Their blood work is better. I mean, there's just so many benefits of exercise. And sometimes I use the word movement instead of exercise, because if you're a person who's hasn't been moving very much or is potentially carrying extra weight, the word exercise might be scary or make you feel, unsafe or
Yeah.
something. Too much, like,
Hmm.
geez, I'm not exercising that, I can't exercise. But you can move. And, you can move, even if it's walk around the block, walk down the street, walk around your house, walk up and down the stairs. So if you've been doing nothing, start small. If you're already doing something, up your game a little bit, raise the bar. The official recommendation for kids is to get 1 hour of physical activity a day. And it doesn't have to be in sports. It doesn't have to be paid for. But hey, go outside and play. It's spring here in Maine, and my son has had his buddies over today, and they were just playing wiffle ball, and they are running around like crazy. But so it helps to have, depending on the child that you have, what they're interested in, go outside with them, sports equipment, invite friends over, walk your dog, there's just so many. But parents need to drive this behavior as well, and really kind of insist on it in a way, like just like we do, like it's time to do your reading, it's time to do your homework, it's time to go outside, and or it's time to get some exercise, that kind of thing. It's just, we need to start looking at it as like this: we brush our teeth, we exercise, this is who we are healthy people, and this is, we want our kids growing up like loving the feeling of moving, so that they will do that when they're 60, 70 years old and keep going.
Well, Doctor, that is an excellent point. But now we did have a change in culture, if you want to call it that way. When I was a kid, that's what we did. We played outside. TV was limited. You only had one cartoon, whatever, series, something, and if anything, that's it, and then you go to sleep. Most of the time we played outside, right? Whatever we did, we ran, we shot car, whatever, we played different things, right? In today's society, our kids are more glued on a chair behind, a desk, in front of a screen for hours in the gaming, right? So now, again, it's still us as parents, because we buy those devices. We are the ones who are enabling them to do that, right? Yeah. Then that also creates the behavior: as they sit, they munch, and they crunch. They're just sitting and taking unnecessary calories in, and before you know it, they're just gaining weight. Now we're making it even easier by ordering everything to the door. You don't even have to go places now. You can DoorDash, and I love the service, but the idea, we use it in to for one thing is good. For the other, it can create some laziness, right? So I think that's another change that happened over the last few decades, where back in the days, kids were like, really, naturally, we were always outdoors. Humans were outdoors. Yeah. They get up and they do the things that they need to do for the day, and then they come back and go to sleep.
Well, the same thing, these screens, all of the screens and the video games that the kids are on, they are also affecting that same dopamine pathway that's so pleasurable. And so the kids are just drawn to that. And so we have to understand, like, oh, he's not a bad kid, or there's nothing wrong with him that he wants to play video games. His brain right now is telling him it's so much fun. Of course he wants to play the game. However, I know as his parent, it's not healthy for him to do that. So I have to set a rules or a boundary, or, I take care of his health and safety in so many other ways. And then this is what a parent needs to really get to the place where they're like, I value movement as a safety feature for him. Like, it's part of his health to be safe and healthy. He needs to get moving, or he needs to get outside and play. So, okay, he's going to be really upset when my son gives me or doesn't give me a hard time. He just doesn't want to turn his screen off. But it's okay. He can not want to turn it off, and he can still go outside. I'm okay with that. If he's upset, I'm okay. It's okay. He can be upset. I wish he doesn't have to. I tell him, like, you're choosing to be upset. That's okay. You can have that experience yourself if you want. But here's our, you've already had your hour or hour and a half or whatever, 2 hours. You've already had your time. That time's up. So now
that's preparing for real life, because you don't always do what you want in life. You're going to be at work. They're going to tell you what to do, when to do.
Yeah, but the truth is, it is more work for us parents. So much easier for me to be like, just keep going. yeah, it's fine, and then I can do what I want to do. I can do the housework, do all the things. But
Well, that's a big deal, doctor, because parents sometimes they just, especially if you have more kids, you
yeah,
just give up at the end. It's like, okay,
if you've
whatever.
been working all day
Yeah.
and you came home and, I guess, yes. And of course, and there are sometimes I'm like that too. And I just am like, okay, fine, but I think I always am just coming back to, I just want the best thing for him, the healthiest thing for him. And I feel so committed to maintaining his good health, and I'm willing to have him be angry. I'm willing to have him be mad. And at the same time, I still love him. I'm still connected to him. I'm not mad at him because he's mad at me. It's okay. He can think I'm, the worst parent. Sometimes I am, frankly. Sometimes I'm a great parent and sometimes I'm not a great parent, but it's okay. But I say, buddy, it's my job as your mom to protect you, to keep you healthy and safe. And I think going outside and playing is part of that. So
Mama
I'm
bear is
out
always,
there.
I mean, think about natural, right? Mama bear protects the kids, right? The cubs,
Yeah.
and it's ready to kill to protect. Same thing here. You're doing it, and the kids may not understand that at that
They
age.
totally.
Eventually, when they grow up. I mean, I've heard my kids say, you know what? We know that you did all this for me
Yeah.
because you
Yeah.
do love us and you want the
Right.
best for us. It is there is a satisfactory satisfaction level when you hear that eventually, and then you see that they see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
But it is tough while you're going through it, and it's not always a picnic, and it's a struggle, and but
But if
again,
you
it's
know you're doing the right thing, you've decided on purpose, this is how I want, this is what I think is best for you. And so then I feel proud. I feel committed to that. Not happy that he's upset, but I'm also not upset that he's upset. So my day doesn't get ruined when he says, you're the worst. You're the worst mom. I'm like, okay,
not fair.
get outside.
But
you know,
it's funny, Doc, because here's the thing, right? We have this, and I've heard these comebacks. Well, my friends' parents, they don't do this, and they start like comparing them. Well, I don't care. This is the United States of me. You're
well,
ruled by this Constitution.
I say sometimes I say like, well, maybe those parents don't understand the importance of getting exercise. I mean, not everybody knows all the things, so maybe they're just confused and they don't understand, so I kind of say like, that
Yeah.
it would be better for you. I'm not saying those other parents are wrong, but I'm just saying, it's people live different lifestyles and make different choices.
That's right. Well, again, maybe they can share the message across, right? Well,
Yeah.
again, by the way, folks, I mean, if you're watching and listening, this is not a bash thing on anybody's style, but I think we all want our kids to be better and healthier and so on and so forth. And what's a better way to do it by educating them about being healthier and again, doing our part. Hopefully, we
Yes.
can do that. Now, doctor, I know I'm exceeding your time here, but you mentioned sleep. That
Yeah.
is that is important. I tell you one thing. I have this struggle with my own son because his sleep patterns are all over the map. Like I can't get him under control
How
in
old
any
is
way.
he?
Well, he's 17. I can't control him anymore.
No, and it's hard. So this is the
Yeah.
thing. Yeah. So sleep is by far the most underrated thing you can do for your health. If you do nothing else but go to bed an hour earlier or 2 hours, so adults, it's recommended to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep. And, I don't think that too many adults actually get that amount of sleep, but it affects every aspect of your body. Again, going back evolutionarily, we've needed sleep, and it prevents so many diseases, without getting too technical about it all, but we need that time of sleep. And it's just not talked about enough, how powerful it is for your health, for your mood, for your weight, for your memory, for your ability to think, for your ability to exercise. And it's the same exact thing for our kids. So there's age-related, sleep recommendations depend on how old your kid is, the amount of hours that they need to get to sleep. I prioritize this very highly with my son, and myself. I used to work in a hospital. I was a hospitalist for a long time, where part of my job was working night shifts, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m.
Yeah.
So I would work day shift, night shift, night shift, day shift, night shift. It was horrible for my health. I mean, I weighed 45 pounds more than I do now. I mean, I don't even recognize myself from back then, because, honestly, the lifestyle that job afforded, like working that, spending those nights at the hospital gave me more time with my son during the day when he was a baby and a child, more of a child. That's what I wanted. So I was willing to do that. But honestly, I didn't even know the toll that was taking on my physical health, and my emotional health and my mental health. So I'm not sure I would do that again, to tell you the truth. Sleep is so important for everybody. So for your child, your teen, and as teens get older, their circadian rhythm shifts, so they naturally want to stay up later. The problem is, we still need them to get up to go to school so that we can go to work, right? It would be perfect if high school started around noon. Then our kids would get a really good amount of sleep, if they could turn their phones off. But, for my approach, I don't have a teenager yet, but I think education for him, and having him really understand the powerful benefits of sleep, if he's an athlete or a musician or a student, anything really, everything benefits by it. And then also the same thing with, like, how we tie food into how your body feels. You could tie in lack of sleep when you're noticed, like, oh, I noticed you only got about whatever X 4 hours of sleep last night. How do you feel today? How do you feel the next day? So we have to help them make that connection. You decided to stay up until 3 a.m. texting with your friends. Okay, you made that decision was made. Now how do you feel? Not in a punishing way, but just like, okay, let's be curious. And do you want to keep feeling like this? And then when he does get a really good night of sleep, or hopefully strings together several nights of good sleep, then you could say, hey, how are you feeling? Like, are you liking the way that you feel? Are you liking your mood? Are you liking, that? And so we just need to help them tie their choices with their results.
Pretty cool stuff. And by the way, this is not just for my kids. So I think for everyone watching and listening, I mean, if you do have, someone in that age group, it is a huge deal, because it is a transitional stage, and with the gaming, with everything. And the other part is that you got the weekends versus weekdays. And then it kind of like they switch those rhythms every week. And so the Friday night, they like switch on weekend mode, and then Sunday they can't switch it off. And that's Monday is horrible.
And that's not helpful either. The scientific data would suggest that the best thing you can do is get up at the same time every day. So you don't have to go to bed at the same time, but if but the problem is, if they're staying up really late, it's a challenge. This is this is where we're at with our modern world, but our ancient bodies. And how do we live in this world, understanding our physiology and what we need to function really well, and then we make our choices from there.
Before technology, I mean, it's sunset, pretty much an hour later you're out. And sunrise, you're like, you're already in nature, roaming again. That's the design, but that design we kind of took off with all the extra light and all the technology. Now it's like you don't have, I mean, the day and night are almost the same. Now in some parts of the world, I mean, the cities don't sleep, right? And people can literally be, everything is pretty much 24/7 now. And you can literally go through a whole night. And I can tell you one thing, I am a person that needs my sleep. Without sleep, I can't function. I don't care. I'm a zombie, literally a zombie. And you
I
can
mean, the
tell.
truth is, everybody's a person who needs their sleep. Some people
Yeah,
just
yeah.
recognize it. I mean, that's really where we're at. It's awesome
Simple.
that you recognize it. Yeah,
Oh, I live by that rule. I
yeah,
gotta get my sleep. Beauty
neat.
sleep. They make fun of me at work. Like you need your beauty sleep. Yeah, I can't do those early things. I gotta get my sleep.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
but it helps my balance. It's to your point.
Mhm.
My psyche is good, and I'm energized. Otherwise, you can't even work out. You're like
Exactly.
you're like slow mo, like a little puppy. You're like okay,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
It doesn't work that way, right? So, well, so doctor, I know we've covered a lot of grounds. Is there anything that we're missing right now?
Well, this is another huge topic, but just the last thing
You
I
can
think
come
is
back,
just,
doc.
yeah,
We
I
can
will.
have
I'll
another
come back.
one.
If you want me to, I'm happy
Of
to.
course, I want you back.
The only other thing is the only other really pillar like of health that I really think parents can focus on is helping their kid learn emotional regulation skills. And because that is such a huge part of being healthy. And I guess what I mean by that is really learning how to understand your thinking and feel your feelings. And it's not we don't talk about this very usually, and we don't with our kids too much, and they're not taught how to do it in school. But if you can really understand that what feelings you're having, what they are, and what they mean to you, and you can accept your feelings, both positive and negative, and you have some tools and some skill set to manage your emotions when you become stressed or when things are harder. That goes a long way towards physical health, number one, but also clearly emotional health. So that's the other piece I work on with my clients is helping with emotional regulation skills.
Thank you, Doc. So now, like, that's the last question of the show today. What last piece is: how can we connect with you, our folks and audiences, so they can pretty much benefit from your work and maybe work with you in case they need the help.
Yeah. So the easiest way is just to look up my website. My whole name, SheilACarrollMD.com. You can email me through that. I have a blog. I'm also starting to put out little snippets of info on Instagram, and just, my goal is I just want to educate and empower I want to help the kids. And I believe so deeply in my heart the best way is through their parents. Because the children love their parents the most. The children idolize their parents. They need their parents. And so yeah. So if you're a parent, there's a lot of great free resources out there, and you can look up my website.
Doctor, you can coach parents, you can work with them, and doesn't matter if they're not in the local area like Maine.
Yeah, I do it
or,
online. Yeah, that's the
okay,
beauty
perfect.
of it. Yeah, yeah. And I only work with parents. I don't coach kids because their brains aren't ready for it.
I was with the parents.
Yeah, it starts with the parents, and honestly, it's the most effective way. So,
All right. Well,
yeah.
Doctor, I will have your information linked to the show, so this way people can connect direct with you. Definitely would look forward to having you back and maybe
Okay.
tackle more and break it down more. So it's very real. I mean, I don't want to let you go, but we've exceeded the time here.
Thanks. This was a great conversation. I'm always so excited to find other people who are excited about this topic too, and who are so passionate about trying to help kids live a healthy life. And
They're the future.
because we want parents to be healthy. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but also the kids are the future, right? So if we don't take care of them right now, the future is not looking good.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Doctor. Thank you so
Thanks
much
for
for being
having
here.
me.
My pleasure. All right, folks. Thank you for being with us, for watching, for listening in. I'm Hurricane H. We'll be talking soon. New day, new show, new topic, new guest. Bye for now. And cut. Doctor, that was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Yeah. How was it?
Good. I feel like I talk too much.
No. You can't compare to me. I talk for a living. So, that's the. But no, it was powerful stuff, and it's been a minute actually. I have another doctor come in on Friday, similar topic, and it's not enough. There's not enough out there to talk about
Yeah.
this because a lot of parents are more like, my kids, I want them to be happy, whatever suits them, whatever, and so they let them be. But you letting them be now, it's like you're hurting
It's
them.
not keeping them happy. I want them to be happy, let them be a kid. And you're like, no,
That's
it's
the attitude they say, like, oh, they're
it's
kids,
the opposite. I
Yeah.
know, but they're just kids. Yeah, like, well, no, I mean, yes, they are kids, and that's why we need to protect them, you know.
I
And the
was
hard
in,
the hard part is that it is so much work for the parents. It's a lot of work. It takes
yeah.
effort. It takes effort. It's so worth it. I mean, it is so worth it, but it's not a slam dunk. It's not take this pill. It's not watch this video. It's work. It's work.
You're
So
undoing a lot of bad stuff that's happening around them, and then you have to control all of it, and it's tough. Listen, I've been there. My oldest is 26. I've had that, run, and then I had my two are 18 and 17. So I'm going through that next stage, but
yeah.
it's rough, and sometimes you do get like, whatever, but you can't give up. You got to keep up.
Yeah, that's what I say to myself. Like if I if I cook something and he's like gags, or something, he refuses to eat it, or I literally say to myself, I'm not giving up. I'm just not giving up. And that's just
The talk is good.
yeah, the whole thing is upstairs, up in our brains.
It's powerful. Well, so
Yeah.
doctor, definitely, please, let's maybe a few months, whatever, we'll come back and we'll touch
Yeah,
again.
anytime. Happy to.
Yeah, and I will give you. I mean, you don't do podcasts yourself, do you? No.
Not yet.
Okay.
Someday I want to.
Again, so if you ever decide to maybe have on the radio, you want to have a time to talk, live, I can connect you with you, and you can
Oh,
do your
okay.
own. You can do your own hour and talk to parents, whatever.
Oh, wow.
Something to think about. If that's
Yeah.
something that's of interest, we can
Okay.
lock in an hour a week,
Yeah.
whatever, a month. It'll be your show, and you can just talk, on the air and give advice. I mean, it's
Oh,
not
wow.
a dual show. Something to
Yeah.
consider, in the
Okay.
future. All right.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah.
All right.
Awesome. Well, it's great to meet you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye
Thanks for
bye.
the good conversation.
Thank you. Bye bye.